Welcome to Consumer Math, Lesson 1.2. Today we're going to discuss percent. The word percent means per 100 or for each 100. Percent is just another way of expressing hundreds. 100% represents the whole, or 100%. And that could be expressed as a fraction, 100 out of 100. Or the whole number 1. Christians are expected to give their best 100% for the Lord. This is represented in Colossians 3:17. And whatsoever ye do in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God and the Father by him. And that was Colossians 3:17. Percent is a ratio and can be expressed as a common fraction with the denominator 100, as a fraction in lowest terms, or as a decimal. So let's say we have 60%, and we want to write that as a fraction. We write it 60 over 100. As a decimal, all we have to do to convert this to a decimal is divide 60 by 100, and we get the decimal 0.6. Sometimes people will write it with the 0 as well, but in its most reduced form, it's just 0.6. One of the major uses of percent is in calculating the cost of borrowing money. The cost is expressed as a percent of the amount borrowed. Interest is the money that is earned from a borrower by lending money for a period of time, and interest is usually expressed as a percent or calculated with a decimal. The rate 5.7% means 5% plus 0.07 of 1%. By using the definition of percent and then dividing, 5.7 can be changed to a decimal. So we could say 5.7% is equal to 5.7 over 100. And if we divide 5.7 by 100, we get the percentage, or the decimal, 0.057. And that would be 5.7% expressed as a decimal. So all you have to do is pretend, or that's what I like to do, is pretend that this is the line with 100, right? The zeros. Because there's two little circles, two little zeros, and I have the line here. So the line and the 100. So 5.7 over 100, you take whatever this number is and put it over 100, and then you divide whatever that number is by 100, and the calculator will give you your decimal like that. In fact, I'm going to pull my calculator up and show you on the calculator how that works so that you can know precisely how to do it. So here's my calculator, and I'm going to take this 5.7%. I'm simply going to say 5.7 divided by 100, and that gives me the decimal 0.057, which is what we have here. So you can see a lot of it is just a matter of taking this and moving the decimal place 1, 2 spaces to the left. Since a percent is a ratio, percent problems can be solved using proportions. But since percents can be expressed in decimal form, such problems can also be solved using the decimal form of percent in a basic equation. Here is our basic equation. We take the percent times the base, and that gives us the number. And that formula is expressed in a shorter form as percent times base equals n. You're going to need to write these things down in your notebook so that you can remember your formulas. In fact, I recommend that you take these formulas and write them on the back cover of your notebook so that you have easy, quick reference to them. You don't have to flip through pages to find formulas. If all of them are on the back cover of your notebook and you need one, you just flip to the back and there it is. If you want, you can use the inside of your front cover for your notebook as well. It's up to you. Since the equation contains three quantities, if any two are known, their values can be substituted into the equation and the equation solved for the unknown. Remember that in order to solve a formula, you can only have one unknown value. This implies the existence of three different kinds of percent problems. So we could find the percent of the number. We could find what percent one number is, the base. We can find the base given that we have the percent and the number. So those are the three types. So I'm going to give you examples 1 through 3 to illustrate that. So keep in mind this process here. You're going to want to write down this process of percent to fraction to decimal so that you can remember how to solve these upcoming problems. All right. In our first example problem, if 58% of 800 radios were sold during the first week of a sale, how many radios were sold? So we're going to use the formula percent times the base is equal the number. So we're going to substitute in the percent and the base because this is what we want to find. Another thing that you can use is to recognize this word of, this preposition, is going to mean multiply. That's going to help you find what you need to know. So we can easily see that this is going to be 58% times 800. 800 is our base. So we'll turn 58% into a decimal, which would be 0.58. And all I did was I took my decimal place and I moved it 2 places to divide it by 100. So it's 0.58. So 0.58 times our base of 800 is going to give us the number that we need to look for. So if I pull up my calculator and I say 0.58 times 800, then our number is 464. 464 is the number of radios that were sold. In example 2, it says, what is the percent grade of a road that rises 900 feet in 10,500 horizontal feet? So we're going to again use percent times the base is equal to the number. So what we don't know is the percent. That is our unknown value. So we leave the P in the equation and we look for the rest of the problem. So our rise is 900 feet. That's going to be our number. This is going to be our base. So 10,500 is the base, and it rises 900 feet in this amount of space. So when we have a variable times a number, and that gives us an answer, we divide by the number that we know to tell us what the number we don't know is. So we're going to divide both sides by 10,500. And our percent is going to equal, when we pull up our calculator, we're just going to simply do 900 divided by 10,500. And that gives us this big, long decimal. But we're going to round it to 86. The 7 right here, we don't need that. We're going to round it to 86. So it's going to be 0.086. But when we turn that into a percent, remember we move the decimal place 2 spaces. So the percent is equal to 8.6%. Example 3. The Jaegers spent 24% of their annual income for rent last year. That's our time frame. If they spent $1,250 per month for rent, how much is their annual income? Well, first we have to understand how much they spent all year. This told us what they spent per month, but 24% of their annual income went last year, and we're looking for annual. Annual is yearly, and it only gave us the monthly expense for rent. So what we have to do first is find the total they spent on rent for the whole year. So we know there's 12 months in a year, so we take $1,250 and we multiply that times 12. Let me put that there. And that is going to be, pull up my calculator. Feel free to use your calculator in consumer math. I am not going to require you to do a bunch of mental math. So they spent $15,000 on rent for the whole year, because this was their monthly expense, 12 months in a year. So this is how much they spent in a year on rent. So if this was their rent for the year, we can put that into our percent times base is equal our number. So our percent we know is 24%. We will put that in decimal form. That's 0.24. The annual income is what we don't know. That's our base. And the number they spent on their rent was $15,000. So now we can actually divide by the percent value. We know what that is, 0.24. So we're going to divide this by 0.24, and that's going to give us our base, which is their annual income. So when we divide 15,000 by 0.24, we get $62,500. So they made $62,500 last year, and that is their annual income. And that is the last example problem we have for lesson 1.2. I'll see you in lesson 1.3.